Hello, it is Saturday the 23rd of November. I hope everyone's doing okay. It's been a really exciting week in crypto markets. And all of those dinosaur utility coins that everybody said were dead and never coming back, and people would say things to me like, oh, nobody's going to come into this market and buy Polkadot or Chainlink. They're dead. That was last cycle. And, here we are. What a week. I think we really can say we know for sure that the bull market is spreading now, because previously in bull cycles, when Bitcoin would make a big move and then it would trade sideways and pause, then the money would spread into the bigger kind of blue chip altcoins, and then the love would, and they would have a big move, and then when they paused, it would kind of move down by market cap. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And so all of those people who said that wouldn't happen this time because it's all about meme coins and nothing else and the newest, who can you scam on pump farm, are wrong. There are serious interest in these utility coins and they're properly rallying. If we take a look at, some of these names that, you kind of didn't really look at so much, all of them up, XLM, HBAR, VeChain, Cosmos, Atom, ADA, up 40, 50, 60, 70% this week. XLM up 162% this week. So we're going to talk about them and target levels. And the only thing I can say about them is this time, if you've been holding bags of these, and most of these, let's face it, they're from 2021. If you've been holding bags of these, please do not forget to pay yourself on the way up this time. You really do. And, and don't ape in, just buy pullbacks, proper, decent pullbacks. And we'll talk about how you can see them on a big daily chart. So first off, let's talk about why Bitcoin has stalled and what's going on, and why haven't we kind of tagged and blasted through 100,000 yet. So for quite a long time, everyone's talking about the sell wall this week, and it's they keep adding to it, and why it's only why doesn't it break? And a very, very big market that a lot of people don't look at if you don't trade it is the options market in Bitcoin, which mostly comes from Deribit. The volume there is absolutely massive. So we talk about a sell wall on a price chart, but in the options market, you can have a call wall, and a call wall is the strike price, where they when they have strike prices for calls and puts, and the call wall is the strike price with the most net gamma, and that is the price where usually it's very strong resistance and you don't break through it the first time. And it's kind of one of, in options trading, it's kind of a really important support and resistance level. So if we look at what's been going on in the Deribit options market, there were a lot of options sold between 90,000 and 100,000 strike price. Up to about 90,000, a lot of it was sold to the market, but above 90,000 and 100,000, and between 90,000 and 100,000, most of the Deribit listed Bitcoin options have been sold to dealers, according to Amber data. And when that happens, so now we've got this massive resistance level by the call wall at 100,000, and between 90,000 and 100,000, the Bitcoin options market makers or dealers who have bought these options are basically in charge. And when you hit them, what tends to happen when you get there, or as you ascend into it, is the price slows down and it keeps it range bound. These market makers, they're responsible for providing liquidity to the order book, and they profit from the kind of big ask spread, and they kind of try and keep it market neutral. So I think between now and year end, we could see a lot, or at least until the end of next week, when these, which is the big option, the month in Deribit, the monthly options are the big ones. and they expire on the 29th of November is the next one, which is next Friday, which would be Black Friday and the day after the Thanksgiving holiday. And I think that for sure we're going to stay range bound in that range. And they tend to, market makers will likely trade against the market direction between 90,000 and 100,000. In other words, they'll be buying the dips and they'll be selling the rallies, and they'll try and keep it because they like to be direction neutral. Where that will go wrong is if Bitcoin actually does manage to blast through that 100,000 level, then they'll be buying it too, you know, and I think we could see perhaps quite an explosive move. But they're a very big part of the market, and I think they're going to be probably working quite hard to keep it in that range. And unless sentiment gets really, really bullish, I think we're going to struggle in between 90,000 and 100,000 for a bit. For me, I had 90,000 as a big chart level for Bitcoin. And one of the patterns you tend to see, and I'm surprised, to be honest, that we overshot it. But one of the patterns that you tend to see when you do here, like I wouldn't want to see a head and shoulders pattern here. That would point to a much bigger pullback, especially if we break through it once we get through the options expiration at the end of next week in Bitcoin. So, you know, that's the bad news. But the good news is that this is a true bull market because people are seeing Bitcoin slowing down and starting to stall and struggling to go any further, and are taking profit out and recycling into other names. And we're seeing some really, really nice moves. And, you know, the love does tend to keep spreading down, you know. The people will put it into something, it'll have a big move, it'll stall, and they'll rotate out into something else. So that's what's going on. If you're going to watch for some volatility after next Friday, we might see some in Bitcoin. We've already had some pretty impressive volatility in MicroStrategy. So let's take a look at that first and what's going on with MicroStrategy. So it feels like ages ago, but last time we looked at MicroStrategy, this is a weekly chart of MicroStrategy. In fact, go to the monthly one first. And we had a big kind of fib projection zone here around 538. And I think, you know, if we count from the January 2023 low, we have, if we pause here around this 423 level and we close a little bit lower, this is kind of where we are setting up a wave 4. So from here, we've made a big wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. We're going to see a wave 4 before we continue higher, or another leg higher potentially in MicroStrategy. And if we look at how long, you know, quite often these waves 2 and 4 are very often equal in time, if not price. If we say, just roughly look at this wave 2 here, how long did it take? It's going to take us to, gosh, April. Remember, this is a monthly chart. So I don't think that we're going to be going sideways that long. So it may be that we just pull back the same as in price. And if we do the same pullback in terms of price as we did in wave 2, then we're here. This support zone that we thought kick in is right at it. And so what ends up happening is we could just kind of go sideways in this zone in a wave 4 in MicroStrategy. What you quite often see in these charts in this position is a triangle or a wedge, and instead of being a 3-wave correction, quite often it'll be a 5-wave correction. So that's what I'm looking for in MicroStrategy. This tail does point to, you know, we could come lower in this. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You know, especially when we look at how we've dropped, right? It's really hard to see this as kind of a clear kind of 3-wave. And one of the reasons I say that is I can't see a 3-wave in this middle leg. And so I think this is more likely to kind of set up as we've had one drop. We'll see 1, 2, 3, and then we'll see another drop before we can talk about maybe this correction being over. So I don't think it's going to be over straight away in MicroStrategy. So that's where we are. That's one of the things that are weighing on Bitcoin. So let's talk about the bigger coins. So first off, let's talk about ETH, which has really struggled. If we look at ETH against Bitcoin, you know, when we look at this on the weekly, gosh, It's not a very impressive weekly candle, big picture. It's not some monster bullish reversal yet. That may, as people come out of Bitcoin and maybe rotate into other markets, we may see that happen. If I look at fib retrace levels from the low in 2019 to the high that we made in 2021, for me this is a big 786 fib retrace level, one of my favorite ones. So if we can rally from here in ETH Bitcoin, I think that we should come back up to the August levels and around 0.043. If we look at this on the daily, it's not quite, the daily moving averages are still holding us down, but I think that we are setting up for a really good level finally to potentially see a bigger bounce from. If we look at ETH against the US dollar, and we look at the weekly, we have been in this, with only two, I have to say, with only 2 touches on the upside of this kind of consolidation, this isn't really a valid trend line until we validate it with a 3rd touch and keep within this trend line. So on this bounce, that should maybe be our first target. But if we look big picture, at the fib levels from the high in November 2021 to the low in 2022, you can see that, as I always look at the 236 fib to validate it. Did we get a reaction there? I've got it the wrong way around. Let's try this again. So, kind of wishy-washy, isn't it? All of this is pretty wishy-washy with that 236 validation level. One thing I will say though is, as you know, I'm very keen on the 786 fib level, and we reversed it. And when you reverse to the 786 fib and you get back underneath the 61.8, which we did here, your first target is the 38.2, and then you expect to come back into the middle and decide what happens then. So kind of this is our middle zone. I would say we went sideways for a week, and now here we are continuing higher. So it's not clear. We're in the middle of a sideways range coiling up. Weekly moving averages are flat and sideways. I think that a 3rd touch of the top of this trend line would be a really good place. And maybe if we look at our fib retrace levels, see if we get a better reaction here from the high in March. This is this year's high to low. Yeah, it's not so giving me so much confidence. But if we keep doing that 786 fib pattern, I think that we could see ETH dollar continue higher to 3,600. That would be this 786 fib again. That would be a 3rd touch of this trend line and a good target if we continue to see rotation out of Bitcoin into maybe other that haven't caught up yet, or other markets. So I have to say, it's not flying yet, is it? Solana. So go easy. I wouldn't fly into this. Solana. We had a big level at the previous highs. Now these target levels we blasted through, but I'm going to look and see if they hold as support here in Solana. And so here we are sideways at the highs from 2021. Previous highs are always a bit of a struggle level. And we could argue that we don't want a reversal here, because we could argue that we've done a big 5 waves up, from the low in 2022. And if we came back to the bottom wave 4, we would be coming halfway back of this entire rally. Because I think we're in a new bull market, I'm looking for us to push through these previous highs and look for much bigger fib targets. But, that means that we need to keep staying in this wave 5 and keep going. We don't want to see really at this point a bigger 3-wave pullback. So short term, 241 is the level I'm watching. But if I take this whole swing from the September low, potentially, and look for the 236 fib from this most recent swing. In fact, I better go from this August low to be safer. 228. I'm going to say that that's kind of my bull bear line. We shouldn't really drop back below that if we're going to keep trending. And if we look at it on the daily, that's also kind of where our previous swing low is, and where the daily 20 moving average is likely to be if we keep going. Now, obviously, if we keep going all of these support levels don't matter because we've blasted through, but I'm going to leave them and say, you know, we really don't want to be back underneath there if we're still going up. So like Bitcoin, we've hit a really big deal round number level, big previous highs from 2021. There is a chance that we could trade sideways here in Solana as well. So it's not a good place for new positions, but there's no reason to dump Solana yet. It's just kind of one of those levels where, you know, markets really have three directions. They have up, down and sideways. And I think that for some of these that have hit their big targets, don't be risking anything with them. Kind of wait for them to pull back and give you an entry for new positions. But if you've got a good one from way back, no harm in taking some profit and paying yourself so that you don't have to watch them chop sideways. You can always get back in again if they decide to blast out, you know. So let's look. I've got a whole bunch of long request lists. So we're going to start with those. And the first one we're going to look at is the, gosh, I've got so many charts here, it's not quite ready. In fact, let's just do it. Let's look at Doge and Doge dollar. Now, I took some profit in Doge when we got to this big 50% level, mainly because I wanted to put it into some other stuff because we were going sideways. And on the weekly chart, you can see that we're in a really nice weekly move, but we're a very long way from these weekly moving averages. And the best place, you know, when you pull back to a moving average and then turn higher again, that's the kind of best place for any buy entry in any market, you know, because that's where you're wrong. And so at this point, you know, we're in the levels where you want to be taking profit when you hit big levels, and only buying kind of on really good pullbacks. Now, should you get out of Doge here? If we look at it on the weekly, no, we've got no reversal yet. And, you know, these fib retrace levels are like a ladder. You climb above one, you hit the next one. As long as you don't, you know, if you're long-term holding Doge, which I don't think is a bad idea, while Elon Musk is, you know, so close with the government and the crypto regulation is going to change. And there's all this chatter about Doge maybe being the payment system on X. I don't think it would be a dumb idea, but these fib levels count. These fib levels count. So if you bought recently with any kind of leverage, then pay yourself and wait for the pullbacks. Now, because we are at a 618 fib level, we should not close back below the 50% fib pivot level here in the middle. I'm going to look at it on the daily because you can see it was really important, and all of these other fib levels have been really important each time we hit them. What do I mean that? I mean by, so if you reverse to the 61.8 fib and you drop back underneath the 50%, you usually do the golden ratio zone in your thing and you come back to the 38.2, which would mean here in Doge a bigger drop down to 0.316. So from 0.399 to 0.316. And you should be able to see it on lower time frames. You'll see us get underneath and it will become resistance if we're going to keep going lower. So after this breakout move to 0.48, this is where the support is, and this is where the second support is in Doge. This is just pullbacks in an uptrend, and if we find support here and turn up again, your first target is going to be a retest of this 61.8 level at 0.48, and if we get above it, the next upside target fib level, which you can see clearly these markets are respecting, is 0.5991, which is the 786 fib, and we'll just go level to level to level. So big levels, nasty reaction here as well in Doge, but it does tend to be pretty spiky. So those are the key support levels. So is this a good place for a new Doge position? No, unfortunately not quite. What about Ripple? So Ripple, there's been all this talk about a Ripple ETF. You know, they haven't even waited for the government to change. You know, they are pushing ahead. Now, when we broke out from this consolidation, and which became trend support, it's not anymore, obviously, Our first target here was at 134, and that was based on simple fib levels in Doge from the highs in 2017 to the lows in 2020. And the market has really respected these. This 236 fib was a really important support and resistance. So was this 38.2, and so was this 50%, which is where we tagged the first time. So my targets are based on measuring from this low to this high and projecting from the low in June 2022. So this kind of zone here between 134 and 143, it looks like we've blasted through it. But the weekly close is Sunday night. It's only Saturday night. And so in Ripple, if we're going to keep going higher, I really kind of want to see us hold, not close underneath this support zone. So when I look at it on the daily, today's been a little bit of a doji pause. We're a little bit sideways. We can see that we've had a spike down and we've had a look at this zone. And this is really our key support zone. Let me take this target away because we're here now. So that's what I'm looking at. And this is on a 4A. You can see on the daily, we've spiked down. So holding above 1.33 is pretty important. It's the previous swing low. I wouldn't be surprised if we make a bit of a base here or double bottom, and again we might go sideways. We might make a bigger three-wave correction here with this week and everything going sideways. But as long as we hold this support, 1.71 would be resistance, but our next upside target is all the way up here at 209. Why is that? Because again, it's based on these measured moves, and that's where we would have the 61.8 fib retrace all the way from those 2017 highs, and it would be an equal measured move low from here to here. So 2.14 between 2.09 and 2.14 becomes our upside target zone. So we're looking for 1.33 to hold as support and basically 2.13 to be our next upside target. So if you haven't got any yet, you kind of need to let this calm down and build a little bit of a base here. But I don't think it's a terrible idea. What if we do a bigger pullback? What if the weekly closes underneath 1.33 and we see a bit of a bigger pullback here? I think back to that round number 1, maybe it would be much more bullish though, to be honest, in Ripple if we could hold this 1.33 level. So that's what I'm looking for in Ripple. Let's talk about ADA. What a blast this one is on. Now, big picture, obviously, this one's had a really big fall. If I look at fib patterns, in other words, I go from this low to this high and see how far did we fall in this one. Did we do a nice reversal at an 886? No, it's a bit messy, isn't it? That sometimes helps us with targets. So if we take our fib retrace levels from this high to low, we've blasted through that all-important 236 fib today. Now, or this week anyway. Now this is very important because these fib levels, you kind of need to have a reaction at them to kind of validate them. And because we've blasted through without any reaction, I would now expect this, especially to validate this fib level, for it to hold a support, and it's at 0.914. Now if I look at this on the weekly, that's going to be quite a pullback, but depending on the weekly closer, that would mean like a 50% pullback of this level. Now, could we keep going from here and not come back and test that fib? Quite possibly, of course. But if that happened and we didn't have any reaction, I kind of wouldn't use these fibs for targets because I wouldn't want to rely on them. I'm going to rely on them instead, measured moves from these lows. So again, I'm looking for halfway back of ADA's this week's big move to hold as support if we keep going higher, and I'm going to go level to level to level. And then when I look at these measured move targets, did we get any reaction, better reaction at them? To be honest, we did. We got a very nice reaction here at this 61.8. And so this 1.618 becomes quite a good next first target, 1.23. and the 2.618 at 1.82, if this one keeps stretching, would be a good target. Now look how far stretched we are. If you're not in this, it's not any kind of good place for a good entry. However, what I said about fib levels, what we've done here in ADA is a very nice three-wave equal measured move pullback here, to be honest, and we've back tested this fib level, which we only kind of briefly paused at. I would not be surprised at all from here to see another leg higher in ADA, and that 1.23 target would be the first upside target from here. And I might do this one myself when I finish, and the second target up here would be this 1.82. I'm just waiting for these momentum indicators to turn up. So I do think ADA has more upside, and that's what I'm looking for. 1.23 and beyond 1.23, if we can hold above that level, 1.82. XLM, what a move XLM has had already. Let's take a look. Okay, I thought I had a chart ready, but apparently I don't, so XLM. Let's start with the weekly. Now, is this a big level? You know, when I look at this chart, particularly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, three-wave pullback more than anything. We didn't make a new low. Really deep pullback. Was it like an? It's a bit messy. But this three-wave pullback for me, you know, says I should really be measuring this first swing and projecting it from here for targets. And we are pretty much likely to head new highs. But the first target is going to be the 61.8. So by that, I mean I measured from here to here, projected it from this low. This 61.8 level then in XLM comes in at 0.545, and that's where we tagged today. When you hit that 61.8 level, your support, if you measure from as low as the 236 fib, so I'm going to put 236 fib retrace in. Don't really want to close underneath that, or we will see a bigger pullback, and that's at 0.436. So that's where our support is on the weekly. On the daily, that's halfway back of today's monster move. So here on the hourly, and it's also this hourly swing low that we made earlier today. So if we're going to keep going higher, we do not want a daily close. If we're going to keep trending higher without a bigger corrective pullback, we do not want to close back underneath 0.43. It's a really big deal. If we push 3.43, and there's quite a lot of them at these kind of important levels now, if we push through, or when we push through in XLM, the next upside target is 0.837, and then 1.04, and maybe 1.3. But we have here reached a quite important milestone. So if you're looking at this on the hourly, you know, if we start seeing a topping pattern, a double top, or we fail on a retest, you might want to take a little bit of profit in XLM if you have been in this one on the long side. So that's how I'm seeing this one. Let's take a look next at DOT. Polkadot. What? This is really, you know, this one made, let's look at this really simply. So if we zoom out here on the weekly and we make it fit, our big 236 fib is all the way up here at 15. Well, that's a very long way from where we are now. But I do think that we are at least going to retest the highs of this range. And the reason is we made a kind of textbook double bottom here. If we look at this low and this low, and when you see that pattern, you very often do. So our first target really should be the high in the middle here at 11.8. But the intermediate one is where this again is this swing is 61.8 of this swing. So if I measure from this low to this high, I don't think I did it quite right. $8.736, and that's right where we are trading now here on the weekly. So again, from this low, we do not really want to come back more than that 236 fib level, or we'll see a bigger pullback, and that in DOT then comes in at 8.05. So little bit of a tricky resistance level again, just like Bitcoin and Solana, others that have hit really big levels. Polkadot has here as well at 8.73, and if we close back underneath 8.05, we're likely to see a bigger pullback. Now if this is a big wave 3, you know, we could, let's just take this most recent swing here, we could come back 50% of this swing, you know, or more. So pay yourself if we get a reversal, and a reversal for me, or a bigger correction, would be back underneath that round number 8. So watch out for that in DOT. Again, if we keep pushing tomorrow and we hold above 8.73, 11.91, and a retest of the highs from March of this year are the next upside target. Okay, let's take a look at Chainlink. Gosh, it's been a while. What a lovely move that this has had. You know, we had really tough resistance in Chainlink from these weekly moving averages, which basically for the past year have been really tough support and resistance in this choppy sideways consolidation. However, big picture, you know, this looks great because from March we have made a textbook, like a lot of crypto have made a textbook, 3-wave equal measured move correction. So we were always on track to go higher and looking from this move for new highs. Now, unlike a lot of other altcoins that I look at, when I look big picture at the fib retrace level, this for me was a really lovely 886 reversal. When you bounce from an 886 fib like that, you normally, your target is, the first target is the 50%, which is a back test of the 50% in 3 waves. So this would be this, this, this. If I just simply measure this first swing and project it from here, that would be also our equal measured move target. So we've got a really nice move going on here in Chainlink, and this is a matter of buying pullbacks. And if we're going to keep going higher and hit this target, you can see what important support and resistance this weekly 200 moving averages. We really shouldn't close back underneath this, and we should be looking for nice 3-wave pullbacks. And as long as we don't close back underneath 14.9, I'm looking for Link to continue higher, and the target up here is at 26. We're at what, 17? I don't think you don't want to top blast this. You want to wait for a nice 3-wave, ideally pullback, or back to the previous swing lows in 3 waves. This is a really kind of nice entry, or back into these moving averages and turning up again. But yes, Chainlink definitely has some more upside. How do I like to do it? I like to do it on a 4-hour. And I like to use Heikin-Ashi candles. When you look down at the candles, you can find Heikin-Ashi. They're a moving average on the candle, and they go from red to green. It's honestly that simple. And so for me, like, this is a textbook entry here or here. 3 waves back, and you go from, it's honestly that simple. You go from green to red, and you're turning up again. And it just kind of works, and that's what we're doing while we're trending. So while we keep trending higher here, now sometimes when you get into the 4th wave, you might get a little triangle or something, but if you keep buying these pullbacks like this until you get to your targets, or you start reversing, so as long as we're making little higher highs and higher lows, we're still going up. That's what I am looking for in Chainlink. Looking good. More upside to come. Okay, next request is for Filecoin. Okay. Now, when you look at how far this has fallen, this is crazy, isn't it? But big picture. So measuring where the 236 fib is from this high in 2021, that's a gazillion miles away. But we could have a nice easy first target, couldn't we, of the weekly 200 moving average and this previous swing high, maybe big picture, if we break out from the highs of this sideways range that we are in. So the first target, if we can get above this weekly 50 moving average, is the top of the range at 11. And then, yeah, maybe we can talk about 24 and so on. So far, you know, this is looking very 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so I'm going to keep it really simple. This clearly, all the way through this weekly 50 moving average has been support and resistance for Filecoin, and here we are testing it. So the weekly close is not until Sunday night, and I would like to see us close above this, or I think that we could have a little bit of a pullback. Otherwise, here we're in that problem range, right, in between the 20 and the 50 moving average. You can get stuck in between it and go back and forward in between it. So if we can't close above this 50 moving average, which is at 5.44, we could end up doing some sideways trading. Look what we did when we were sideways in between it here. Between April and June, we went sideways for 2 months. When we did it here, we were sideways for a little bit as well. So closing above this, actually, this 5.44 then should become support and we keep going higher. But for now, potentially, this is a little bit of a problem level. And if I measure high to low, whereas our support, this 236 fib, hopefully from this high, and I would be looking for it to keep going. But for now, this, yeah, a little bit tricky. Let's see if we can hold above it. On the daily, everything looks super strong. There's no sign of a reversal. I put my 4-hour Kanashi on. We're still riding the greens higher. No sign of any pullback yet. But that's the key level that I'm looking for in Filecoin if we're going to keep going higher. So more upside and the top of the range if we can do that and get above that weekly moving average. And it then becomes support. Okay, let's take a look at Arbitrum. Okay. Another one with a big challenging level. Now, it's only this 236 fib, and 0.89 then becomes the big key level. We haven't quite tagged it yet, but we can see that it was previously support, and we maybe have a little bit of a problem there. In terms of a measured move, I don't think that that's it. I like how we're trading above the daily 200 moving average. I'm just watching out for a bigger pullback there. Yeah, just watch out for a little bit of resistance and maybe some consolidation underneath 0.89. If we blast through it, then it should keep being support and we continue higher. So Arbitrum, I wouldn't like to say in fib terms that, yeah, or moving averages or anything else that we've reversed, but on the daily, we definitely have. And as long as this 0.7 becomes support, we are still going higher in Arbitrum. Okay, next one we're going to look at is GRT. Again, coming back from the dead. Now this one has done it in terms of the weekly 50 moving average. At the moment we're trading very nicely above it. And if we look back, we can see it's been pretty interesting support and resistance. So it's looking pretty good. I'd like to make sure that we are still tomorrow holding above this weekly 50 moving average for another leg higher. This is another one. When I look from the high that we made in March in this coin, this made a textbook 1, 2, 3 equal measured move correction. Look, if I measure from this high to this low, project it from here, it's not equal, but we're back above that 61.8 level. For me, when you are drawing these measure moves high to low, this 61.8 level becomes quite a good bull bear line. Back above it is pretty bullish. So we're on our way up. Let's put our 236 fib retrace on. We blasted through that, but we're at the 38.2. Now we got, if we go down to a daily, we got a pretty interesting pullback at this 236 fib level. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the same at this 38.2 fib level. And if we can hold above it, then 0.3 next, and then 0.348. I'm just literally going fib retrace level to fib retrace level. So we've hit our next target. We could see a pullback for a day or two in GRT. but we stay bullish and we stay looking to buy pullbacks and continue higher unless we fall back underneath 0.201 and the 200-day moving average here. That's kind of, we would be bearish if we fell back underneath there, and we need to watch out for that. So GRT, quite a lot of these alts have hit kind of pullback levels or consolidation levels or first targets, if you like. Next one we are going to look at here is Uni. Let's take a look at Uniswap. Gosh, they all of these coins, you know, when you look at these old OG coins that we all wrote off, when we look at the high we made in March with everything, they've all made really interesting three-legged moves. Now, it wouldn't be so bullish if we saw three-wave moves the other way, but for now, this is looking amazing. So when you have a three-wave correction like this, you put your fibs on both swings. You go fib level to fib level to fib level, make sure they got validated. We certainly got a good validation at this 236 fib level here, and we got a good validation at this 38.2 and this 50 kind of. And so if we can hold above this 50, we keep going higher and we look for the next one. So if we hold above 10.87, we keep going higher to 12.3 and then 14.4 next. And we just, again, ride level to level to level, and we're going to look for this 14.4 and a retest of this 236 fib. I think would be a really good challenge and good next. But, you know, this, where we are, we've got this newly minted 200-week moving average. We don't know how it's going to work. And so we could get a little bit of a bigger pullback there. But, you know, I like this. I think this should continue higher. And if I was to look big picture at this, if we can overcome this weekly 200 moving average, then the big measured move from this low to this high, takes us from here, new highs. Yeah, it's not quite textbook, is it? What if, because we got this good reaction, I'm going to rely on it, but we've got, should be bullish, but we've got some resistance to break through before we get there. So if you wanted something to buy against in Uniswap, getting above this 200-week moving average and then finding support from it would be a good one. Or if we draw our fibs back in, getting above this 50% and holding above it again, because you want to kind of buy as close to where you know you're wrong or not. If we can't close above this 50%, we kind of need a little bit of a bigger pullback here. So Uniswap, I no reason to get out, no reason to take profit yet, but it's not a kind of a good buy because we're too close to kind of overhead resistance. I'd like to see us above it and finding support from it before that happens. OG is another request. Let's take a look at this one. Yay, gosh. When I look at this all the way back to 2021, this is a weekly chart. This really does like making these, you know, in this sideways range, big three-wave moves, right? So we have three-way 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and here we are starting a new swing higher again. So we've had our first swing, we've pulled back to these moving averages on the weekly, even though they're flat and in the middle. So this is kind of a really cool place to try and find some support from for another leg higher. If we're going to do an equal one, we could kind of fudge where we're going to come back to, like reverse engineer it if our target is that trend line. And we might go a little bit lower here, mightn't we? So I would be looking on lower time frames for some kind of bottoming pattern. And when I look at it on the daily, you know, we're still in a little bit of a downtrend here. Not quite. If I look at it on the 4 hour, you know, what you don't want to see is kind of three-wave moves in a downtrend, because it kind of points to continuing lower. So potentially what we've just done here is a little, you know, three-wave equal move, and we could, unless we can get out of here, this kind of doesn't say bottom to me yet. Now, if we blasted above it, then I think we could be maybe talking about a bottom, but I think we should see some soon. So I'm looking for, on the lower time frames in OG, for some kind of bottoming pattern and then another swing higher and holding. You know, the problem is on the weekly moving averages, we've got them all here, but the weekly 50 is a little bit lower, and sometimes we go say hi to him, and that's down here at 4.4. And if we look at it on the daily, below where we are now, and even the daily 200 moving average, which, let's face it, has been pretty good support and resistance, is a little bit lower at 4.11. So I wouldn't be surprised if this continues lower, 4.2 or 4.1, before a bottom and the next swing higher in OG. Just not quite the bottom pattern I want to see yet. Let's take a look at last request is INJ, and again a really simple structure in this one. From the March highs, 3 waves down, here we are turning higher, up again, trying to get above, we're trying to get back above the weekly 50 moving average, and we are climbing the fib levels. When you get 3 waves like this, you put your fibs over both swings. So we're going to go high to low and see if we validated them, and we certainly did with this one. With this, if we go down to the daily, you can see really big reaction at this 236 fib, and then we got above it. It was support. We've double bottomed off it. So the next fib target on the upside is this 38.2. Let's hope it's not quite such a long, drawn out, dramatic reaction. So this is key resistance 28.60. We could see a bigger pullback, and we could retest these lows at 22. And I would not, unless we got back underneath that, I would not be bearish. We're still going higher. It would be more bullish to see a short time frame lower, you know, shallow pullback and then break above it. And if we break above this level, the next upside fib level is here at 33.26 and then 37.91, and I'm just going to climb it like a ladder. But the important thing for me is that we do not get a daily or weekly close back underneath 22.83 in INJ to keep going higher. I think it looks pretty good. I certainly like this whole corrective move for this year. If we go back out to the weekly, we can also say, you know, this really is textbook 5 waves up, 3 waves back. So there's a lot to like about this. So again, we're going to trade level to level to level, trying to get above these weekly moving averages. We've already done it with the daily. If we can do that, then, you know, blue sky and off to the moon in this one, hopefully new highs. Because it's a 5th wave, I would expect to see new highs. They sometimes fail. I'd certainly be looking for that by going level to level to level though in this INJ. So lots of people are asking me, how do I think about where are the ceilings for this cycle and so on. I do think honestly that until we kind of know how everything is going to be, I do think that for the next few weeks we could see some sideways and potentially into year end, and it could get a little bit choppy because we've had the really good move in Bitcoin already and the altcoins. I do think it'll kind of move down. So, you know, I don't know what hasn't gone yet. But if you look at them by market cap, I think we'll start going down into smaller cap coins like sushi and so on. And yeah, I think there are bigger moves coming for the ones that haven't gone yet. And then, you know, that'll all change when Bitcoin goes again and all the money moves back towards Bitcoin. So while this is happening, and whilst these big utility coins have had quite a big move, it's taken quite a hit in quite a lot of the meme coins. I can't honestly, these meme coins, you've got to be really careful. Like, there are some real arseholes out there shilling. I watched yesterday, I can't remember the kid's name. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to make a separate meme coin video now, but good luck.